Alrighty, it's another exciting episode of Vault Science with your hosts Diet Cola and Bombkill. Not my real name, actually an alt. Anyways, what are we talking about today, Diet?
We're going to talk about bunkers and the basic fundamentals of bunkers.
What are the basic fundamentals of bunkers?
So, first of all,
what is this thing? This obsidian monstrosity before me?
this obsidian monstrosity is what we call a bunker. So, the purpose of a bunker is just a secure structure in which you can store viable materials or anything you particularly want. It's just a safe way of storing stuff.
So a bunker is, like Diet said, it's a secure structure, mainly used in warfare. It is a place where fighters go to get more potions, sometimes more armor, repair their armor. So often in a bunker you'll find potions, potion ingredients, and XP, and then diamonds to repair people's armors and anvils and shit like that. So just to look at it from sort of a big perspective, a meta perspective, you have fighters who are leaving the combat to go into the bunker, which means that the bunker is some place where there's a lot of activity, where there are a lot of people congregating, which means it's not something that's going to be kept hidden very long. It's going to be something that the enemy is very interested in destroying, so it needs to be protected, but it's also known, so it's not going to be, incredibly easy to hide. And it's not a really good place to store valuables. It's a good place to store potions because you need a secure place to put your potions so you can go and re-gear. But it's not a place really where you should store all of your XP and all of your tiered materials and all your wealth. That's probably the biggest mistake people actually have when constructing a bunker, is that they make one bunker for the entire city and then they put all of their prot that they've produced over the last 3 weeks into it, and then me on an alt comes along and steals all of it. Flashback to Aeon. So for your wealth and for anything important and valuable, you still want to probably put it in a drop chest or a chest vault that's hidden. But for a bunker used in wartime, we're gonna tell you how to make one. So let's start sort of with the first exploit over here. You want to explain what you're doing here, Diet?
Okay, so this is a glitch that involves the corner of blocks that only affects the top corners of tunnels per se. So let's say you have a doorway tunnel that leads into your bunker. So if you leave the corners exposed to the top, there's a handy little glitch we can do with rails, where as long as we put a block on this side of the block and use a minecart and rail, we can simply push ourselves in and bypass the corners of a block. So if this tunnel was filled with doorways per se, we could easily bypass quite a few of those doorways and probably end up in your bunker 2 to 3 times quicker than normal.
Which is kind of a problem. This is a glitch that specifically affects, I'm pretty sure it's only Civ servers because of Humbug. I don't think it affects other servers, and it's never been fixed. Probably never will be. So you just have to design your bunker to defend against it, which over here we have a bunker that defends against it. It's simple. Just square off your corners on the top specifically, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, the bomb you can't glitch through the bottom corner, so it's fine to perfectly leave your corners exposed on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. The other side of it too is it's good to put all of your bunkers down at bedrock, because there's another glitch involving minecart teleporters. You've probably seen this in a lot of bases. Essentially, it's just a minecart that has a half block above it. When someone enters the minecart and has their head in that half slab above them, and then they try and get out of the minecart, Minecraft/Humbug freak out because the minecart's trying to exit them in a block, and will try and put them in a block above where they're located. So if you have a bunker that has 4 blocks of open air, and there's space below the ground where they can put a minecart with a half slab, they could potentially teleport up into your bunker. So the solution there is just to make sure either that your bunker doesn't have 4 empty air blocks of space, or to put your bunker down at bedrock so they can't put anything underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads us to our next sort of portion that's good to talk about, which is sky bunkers. So sky bunkers were something that developed in Civcraft 2.0. They're essentially a very secure way to have a lot of room to store valuables that relies mainly on bastions to defend them. And Diet, you want to talk about what this little contraption is?
Okay, so what this contraption is basically a Jupiler trap that is basically used in every sky bunker design that's been seen over the past 2 years with bastion vaults.
Except for Nox that didn't trust it and decided to rely on water traps for whatever bizarre reason. But
yeah. So the basic fundamentals of this design is that with Jupiler, there's a special ability using a command called toggle levers. Depending on which side of a snitch you put a lever, you can use certain actions that when the snitch is triggered, it will basically do different actions. So
we'll put a link to a little description of all the different settings that you can do with Juke Alert, with a little bit more information about what direction the lever has to be facing. But yeah, continue.
So for sky bunkers, we have to put the lever on the north side so that when an entry is logged on the snitch, it will trigger a redstone signal. So
when someone's not on the group and enters the snitch, when it would normally generate that snitch entry alert is when the lever will switch. So someone who's on the group already, someone who's friendly, won't toggle it because they won't create an entry alert.
Correct. So when the person who's not on the group triggers the snitch, they will turn this lever on for 1 tick, and that'll be enough to turn redstone on for a second. Now,
send me through, Diet.
We have a fence gate, so we can just quickly drop the person who's not on the group out of the tower immediately and get rid of the problem.
So, the structure in a sky bunker is normally up in the sky, as close to build limit as possible, because again, we want to avoid any minecart teleporters down at the very bottom. For a sky bunker, the sort of design that actually protects it is essentially a bastion, and then as you move down, you create different layers of bastions underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we want to go into how to do this? I think we can do just a quick overview. So let's actually get some more space. Let's go above this thing here.
See why I said if we get some examples, it might be a good idea.
Yeah, well, I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but it's pretty necessary. So for a sky bunker, what you want to do is you want to start from a single point, and that point's going to be a bastion. This is going to vary across servers based on what their bastion settings are. Most of the time, especially in Devoted, we're going to try and stick around Civcraft's original 2.0 bastion shapes, which is, around 10 radius, so 10 blocks in each direction. But essentially, you're going to start with 1 bastion, or you're going to start with, let's say, 4 bastions if you're compensating like Diet likes to do with his sky bunkers. I like to start normally with 1 bastion because it's the cheapest and most efficient method. The actual bunker that you create is going to be a couple blocks above that bastion, normally about 4 or so.
A minimum 6.
Yeah. Are you saying minimum 6?
Yep, so the player standing on top of the bastion can't reach up to the sky bunker. Okay,
we'll do 7 then, just to be safe. So the actual bunker shouldn't fill the entire bastion field because an individual who's trying to break in... Diet, can you make the actual bastion field so they know what we're looking at while I'm talking about? So an individual who's breaking in has to actually place blocks within the bastion field to break in. So they need to be placing a block against another block somewhere within this field to actually break that bastion, and it has to be above where the bastion is placed. If they come down to the ground and start placing blocks, it's going to do nothing. So they have to be within the bastion field, which is covering this bastion block and all the blocks above it. And they have to find an area where they can place blocks against. So the reason that sky bunkers work is because there are no other blocks up in the sky. You just have open air. So an attacker has to actually be able to touch the sky bunker to place blocks against it. Has to be within range in order to break this bastion here. Otherwise, they have to go from the bottom and pillar up until they get into the bastion field, and then they can start placing blocks there and try and break the bastion that way. And that's what we want them to do. So we don't want to give them an easy way to reach the sky bunker and place blocks against it to bypass a layer or two of bastions. So we try and keep it relatively within the bastion field, and make a circle or something that's a little more symmetrical. But you get the general idea. But the nice thing about a bastion or a sky bunker is that you can essentially go up as high as you want from where your first bastion starts, and you can fill that entire area with chests. And it takes a lot of time for an individual to initially break in, because they have to break through all of the bastions, which we'll talk about the bastion layers now. So as we were saying before, we want them to have to pillar up from the bottom and break through each layer of bastion to get in. So the way we do that is we have the first bastion there. We go down 6 or 7 blocks.
7.
So right here.
Mm. And then bastion. Yeah.
And then instead of making it in the same area, you actually go out 1 block. So the reason you do this is so that someone who is trying to break from the side... Ooh, you fucked up. There you go. Someone who's trying to break in from the side won't be able to break multiple layer of bastions. So if you're going in from the pillar up all the way to sky limit, you're pillaring in from the side, you're going to break into this bunker. You're going to get to right about here. Probably a little bit back. I don't know. Still farther. So you're pillaring in from the side. And not there yet. You're going to get to about here before your bridge is going to stop, because there's another bastion in the way. Those bastions below there. So you're going to have to place blocks here, and you're going to have to keep placing blocks here until you break that first bottom layer of bastions. Once you break that bottom layer, you're going to get 1 block forward, and you're going to have to place blocks here, because you're in that second layer of bastions right there. So by doing that, you make it so someone who's pillaring up from the bottom is going to hit that layer of bastions down below before they have to deal with that layer of bastions. And someone pillaring in from the side is going to have to do the same exact thing. So again, this is susceptible to minecart teleportation again, so you have to make sure, instead of trying to secure the area down below by building it at bedrock, what you have to do is you just have to make sure it's built up at sky limit, and you have to make sure that there are no 4 empty air blocks of space in your bunker at all.
And also an alternative to it is if you don't want to build at sky limit per se, but you want to build at regular level, so somewhere between the range of Y60 to Y120, you can place fence gates at roughly Y250, and Humble will recognize that as a block, and it'll be 4 blocks of air above it, so it'll be a valid teleportation spot. And this is why you'll see a lot of fence gates over sky bunkers and stuff. It's basically a trap to prevent the minecart teleportation.
But be wary, because you have to make sure that there's enough air in between there and the bunker that someone who's falling from that sky limit will actually die, instead of, take 9 hearts of damage and be fully alive at the top of the bunker. So that's the same technique that's used in the door trick, the juke alert. Because that's the way that they actually teleport up into it, is with the open fence gate above. So yeah, that's the basics of a sky bunker. they're a little finicky to do at first, but they offer a lot of protection, and they offer a lot of scalable protection, which is very important as well. I don't normally recommend bunkers on the ground to store valuables, but if you do a very secure, very expensive sky bunker, they work very well in combination with a chest vault to store and secure valuables. Yep. But anyways, on to the bedrock bunkers a little bit more. There's sort of one other topic I want to discuss, which is sort of the most optimized bunker you can make, which I developed alongside Diet, mainly because of Civex. We were looking for very efficient bunkers that didn't use bastions, and this is what we came up with. So normally we recommend chest vaults to secure any type of material, valuable, potions, supplies, just because they scale very well. The more chests you have in a chest vault, the stronger it gets, and it's a linear scaling. Where if you have to keep adding layers of obsidian to a chest, it gets exponentially expensive very quickly, because each layer of obsidian you have to put down has to have a couple more obsidian surrounding it to actually defend it. So it just gets very big very fast. And that's why you don't see ridiculous amounts of layers on a vault, like 70 layers or 80 layers. It's because it gets exponentially expensive to do. But on the very small level, on the very micro level, it actually makes sense to cover a single chest with a layer of obsidian. If you're using that single layer of obsidian to also make a part of the wall of a bunker, it makes it much cheaper to construct a bunker. It's a very cramped bunker, but it's a cheap and very frustrating to break type of bunker. So we built one over here, which has a lot of doors, and as you go through the bunker, there are chests that are buried underneath a layer of obsidian, demonstrated by beacons here, just to show where they are. Where if someone needs a pot loadout, they can just break the top layer. They have to have CTB permissions, which makes it a little bit of a pain in the ass when you're managing the groups, but it makes it much more secure and much more sort of easier to defend. Which is why I prefer it more than anything else, but that's probably the most efficient you can get from a bunker. You're more likely to see bunker designs like this, where you have sort of either crisscross in the floor, or you have just rows of bunkers along the side, or chests along the side. Yeah. One other closing thought is with fence gates, there is actually a lot of opportunity to abuse it and try and open it when it's closing, and a lot of other things that Citadel doesn't really play nice with. So the next generation of sky bunkers is probably going to use a castle gate trap instead of fence gates. It's simply because it's a little bit harder to abuse. So if you were to make a sky bunker on Devoted specifically, or other Civ servers that are going to use castle gates, I would recommend doing a castle gates block instead of an actual fence gate. It's going to be essentially the same setup. You still are going to need an open fence gate above it, or open skylight, and a jukebox with a redstone signal to the castle gate gears.